Malik sifted through forgotten trinkets and dusty relics. The air hung heavy with the scent of mothballs and time. He was a sucker for these estate sales, drawn to the whispers of forgotten stories. His fingers brushed against a cold metal latch. It belonged to a tarnished silver box tucked away in a dark corner. He lifted the box. It felt strangely heavy in his hands. It was ornately carved with an intricate design that seemed to writhe and shift as he turned it. The latch clicked open with a low groan. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a single tarnished key. It was cold to the touch, as if infused with the chill of the grave. Malik's pulse quickened. He could feel a strange pull towards the key, an inexplicable allure. As he traced its intricate carvings, a scrap of yellowed paper slipped from beneath the velvet lining. It held an address scrawled in elegant cursive, Holloway House. The name hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. Malik tucked the key into his pocket, its cold metal a constant reminder of his discovery. He could have walked away, pretended he never found it, but some unseen force was already drawing him in. The drive to Holloway House was shrouded in an unnatural stillness. The GPS flickered, struggling to pinpoint the location. The closer Malik got, the heavier the air grew, thick with an oppressive dread. Trees loomed on either side of the narrow road, their branches skeletal fingers reaching out to grasp at the fading light. The house stood at the end of the drive, a monolith of shadow against the dying sun. It was a Victorian mansion, once grand, now consumed by decay. Its windows were dark, vacant eyes staring out at him. The paint peeled from its walls like dying skin. It felt less like a house and more like a watchful presence, ancient and malevolent. Malik's hand trembled as he reached for the key in his pocket. It pulsed with a faint, rhythmic hum, a heartbeat in the suffocating silence. He could feel his own heart pounding in his chest, a frantic drum against his ribs. He took a step closer, each footfall echoing in the stillness. As he reached the front steps, the front door creaked open. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, as if beckoning him inside. The air inside was stagnant and cold, thick with the scent of dust and decay. The house swallowed the fading sunlight, shrouding everything in an unsettling gloom. Malik stepped inside, each creak of the floorboards echoing like a scream in the suffocating silence. Dust motes danced in the faint slivers of light that pierced the boarded-up windows. He moved through the house as if in a dream. Each room he passed was frozen in time, a snapshot of a life abruptly ended. A dining room with the table set for a meal never eaten. A nursery filled with toys coated in dust. A grand library with shelves stacked high with leather-bound books, their pages whispering secrets long forgotten. The air grew colder as he climbed the grand staircase. It felt heavy, as if burdened by unseen eyes watching his every move. The silence was broken only by the sound of his own breath and the rhythmic thump of the key against his chest. He found it at the end of a long, shadowy hallway. A single door, painted black, stood out against the peeling wallpaper. It was strangely cold to the touch, as if drawing the warmth from his hand. As he reached for the handle, his fingers brushed against a small metal plaque. Engraved on it were 3 words: "Know the rules." A chill ran down Malik's spine. The words seemed to hum with an unseen energy, a warning etched in cold metal. He hesitated, his hand hovering over the doorknob. What rules could a house possibly have? He pushed the thought aside, driven by a morbid curiosity that eclipsed his fear. He had come this far, drawn by some unseen force. He had to know what lay beyond the black door. The storm broke as he stepped into the room. Rain lashed against the boarded windows, and wind howled through the gaps in the walls. It was a small, cramped space dominated by a heavy wooden desk. A single flickering candle cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. On the desk lay a leather-bound journal, its pages filled with frantic scribbles. Malik reached for it, his fingers trembling. As he opened it, a gust of wind slammed the door shut, plunging him into darkness. The candle sputtered and died. He was plunged into absolute blackness, the only sound the raging storm outside and the frantic thump of his own heart. Then he heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. They echoed from the hallway, each one sending a fresh wave of terror through him. Panic seized him. He fumbled for his phone, its screen a beacon in the suffocating darkness. But the battery icon blinked red, and then the screen went dark. He was trapped, alone in the heart of the storm with whatever lurked beyond the door. The knocking came again, more insistent this time. He could hear the floorboards creaking outside, slow, measured footsteps approaching. He backed away, bumping against the desk, his hand scrabbling for something, anything, to defend himself. He could hear the rasp of something scraping against the wood of the door, the distinct metallic clang of the doorknob rattling. In the darkness, his eyes played tricks on him. Every flicker of shadow seemed to writhe and twist, taking on monstrous forms. The door creaked open. A sliver of moonlight sliced through the darkness, illuminating a figure silhouetted in the doorway. It was tall and skeletal, its edges blurring in and out of focus. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, as if it were a being woven from the shadows themselves. Malik screamed. He scrambled back, his foot catching on the leg of the desk. He fell, hitting the floor hard. The journal slipped from his grasp, its pages fluttering shut. The figure glided towards him, its form shifting and swirling in the darkness. He could feel its cold, dead eyes fixed on him, filled with an ancient hunger. Then everything went black. Morning light, pale and fragile, filtered through the boarded-up windows. The storm had passed, leaving behind an eerie silence. Dust motes danced in the sunbeams, painting the decaying room in a deceptively peaceful glow. The door to the room stood wide open. The only evidence of Malik's presence was a single shoe lying on its side near the overturned desk. The journal lay open on the floor, its pages filled with frantic, nearly illegible writing. On the last page, scrawled in a hand not his own, were 3 words: "The list grows." Across town, a young woman named Sarah sat at her kitchen table, sipping her morning coffee. She glanced at a news notification flashing across her phone screen. Local man goes missing, last seen at abandoned estate sale. She shook her head, a shiver running down her spine. She had a bad feeling about that estate sale. She had almost gone herself, but had been held up at work. Now she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. Suddenly, something clattered in the hallway. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest. As she cautiously made her way towards the sound, her fingers brushed against something cold and metallic in her coat pocket. It was a small, tarnished silver box, identical to the one Malik had found. Inside, nestled on faded velvet, lay a single tarnished key.